And welcome back. Here's your latest California housing market update. In today's video, I'll touch on what's happening right now in the state of California regarding home prices, home sales, housing inventory, and much, much more. I'll also provide an in-depth analysis regarding home prices on a statewide level here in California based on my own analysis of the California Association of Realtors data. So thank you so much for joining me in today's video. And let's begin. This is from the California Association of Realtors. They release a monthly update regarding the California housing market each and every month. Anyways, here's a snapshot looking at sales and prices and inventory as well. So home sales, this by the way, is for existing detached houses in California. In other words, excluding multifamily properties and also excluding brand new houses as well. So on a seasonally adjusted annualized basis, this January, there was around 256,000 sales, and that was up by 5.9% compared to January of 2023. I had a note here because some people may have a question regarding what is a seasonally adjusted annualized rate, or SAAR. So this would be the total amount of home sales for the next 12 months if we had the same sales pace this January. So the current sales pace this January, multiply that by 12 and also do a seasonal adjustment due to seasonal factors that influence home sales. That would be your seasonally adjusted annualized rate over the next 12 months. I should say that would be the actual number of home sales if we have the same pace this January. Also at 256,000, this is actually the highest level in about 6 months, yet it's still historically low. In fact, I'll share a graph with you guys regarding sales over the past 20 years or so, and you really can see how low the sales are right now, even though they're up by 5.9%. One thing to keep in mind is that, in my opinion, one of the reasons why we're up by 5.9% year over year is due to the fact that mortgage rates decreased in November and December last year, which caused home sales or closed home sales to increase this January. Let's also talk briefly regarding prices. And again, I'll have a much more in-depth analysis regarding home prices in California here in just a little bit. But overall, the median sold price, these are the houses that actually closed escrow this January, was just under 789,000, up 5% year over year. Meanwhile, inventory, or the month supply, is at 3.2 months, down by about 9% year over year. In order to have a more balanced real estate market, a balance between buyers and sellers, whether a buyer or seller doesn't have a competitive advantage over the other, that would be a balanced market, we would need this number to be in the range of 4 to 6 months and not 3.2 months. So overall, at the statewide level here, we still have a seller's market. But again, if you guys are looking to buy a house in Sacramento or anywhere in California, it's a really good idea to have a look at what's happening in that area, because this is what's happening for the state as a whole. What happens in Bel Air is vastly different what happens in Sacramento, for example. If you guys want to see or kind of look up real estate trends in an area you're interested in California, actually a really good website, not a paid promotion, is actually Redfin's data center. Or if you guys want to find stats in the greater Sacramento area, you guys can always reach out to me. You can email me at jason@meetjasonwalter.com. Any case, looking at days in the market, this is a time frame when a home seller lists their house for sale until they accept an offer from a home buyer. That's only 32 days on average, or that's the median days, and that's down by about 18% year over year. Let's talk about sales, and then we'll talk about home prices. So it says here, sales bounce back, but remain near historical lows. This increase of 5.9% year over year is actually the first yearly increase in about 2.5 years. We had, over the past 2.5 years, we had sales decreasing on a year-over-year basis. This is the first time in about 31 months that sales have increased year over year. However, looking at this graphic right here, going back to January 2005, you really can see how low the levels are. And also, by the way, the seasonally adjusted annualized rate of home sales increased by about 14% compared to December. So a big increase in sales this January, yet when looking at pre-pandemic levels at right now at 256,000, this is actually the lowest level since approximately 2008. So sales still remaining very much low. Also, as a note right here, if rates stay above 7% for an average 30-year fix, today at the time of filming this video, which is on February 28th, the average rate is around 7.15% for people putting at least 20% down, and also for people who have excellent credit. So if rates stay above 7%, I would expect sales to remain at very low levels. However, it's my prediction here, we'll see more home sales this year compared to last year. On a national level, we had the lowest number of home sales since 1995. So in my opinion, we really can only go one direction. It would be very challenging to get to home sales below what we saw last year. A very, very low number of home sales in California and also nationwide as well. Now, here's something I also found to be really intriguing as well, because the sales at the top end of the market in California are increasing faster than average price houses and actually more affordable houses as well. So for example, houses that sold in the range of $1 million to just under $2 million increased by 20%. So sales increased by 20%, whereas sales over $2 million in January rose by 25% compared to January 2023. Pretty crazy to see that, where the luxury housing market, I shouldn't say luxury housing market, it depends on the market, right? But houses over $1 million increasing much greater compared to 12 months ago. And you can see that right here. This is the share of sales this January this year, which is at 27% compared to 24% in 2023. So what's that? Around 3 of every 10 houses that closed in January this year sold for over $1 million. Last year, it was at 24%. This is also a new trend we're seeing right now regarding pending home sales, a measure of contracts being signed between buyers and sellers. In other words, buyers submitting offers on houses and getting their offers accepted actually posted the first annual gain since May 2021. So pending sales increased by 6.2% from 12 months ago. Whereas ever since really the spring months of 2021, we have been down year over year. Okay, let's talk about home prices because I have a lot to share here. It says California's median home price dipped below $800,000 for the first time in 9 months. Around, what was it, $789,000. The first time we've had home prices be at levels below $800,000 since approximately March last year. Prices decreased 3.8% compared to December. And by the way, these numbers right here for the median sold price is not seasonally adjusted. In other words, prices tend to decrease in the winter months. So it's normal to see prices decrease from December through January. However, I'll share some historical trends here in a little bit because the decrease of 3.8% is different compared to the historical average going back to 2010. Also, we're up by 5% year over year. So let's get a little bit nerdy here. Here's my fancy spreadsheet looking at the trends we're seeing right now regarding prices in California. So here's what I pulled from the California Association of Realtors website. I am a member of CAR. Also, I'm a member of the National Association of Realtors and also the Sacramento Association of Realtors as well. But because of all this, I can share historical trends with you guys because if you guys want access to this, I think it's like $1,000 or something crazy like that. Anyways, so for January, we're at 789,000. Again, the first time we dipped below 800,000 since March last year. However, of course, we're still up from 1 year ago. Speaking of that, prices have increased by 5% from January of 2023. As a note right here, This actually marks the 7th consecutive month of year-over-year increases after 8 consecutive months of decreases. However, January's increase was smaller than the previous month in December, and before that, the year-over-year gains were gaining momentum. It's actually probably better for me to share this because that's a little bit confusing. So let's go back to November 2022. That was the first time in many years in which prices decrease on a year-over-year basis. And from November 2022 through June of 2023, we saw a decrease in prices on a year-over-year basis. Then we had July last year, the first gain in about 9 months. What I mean by that, this January prices are increasing, but they actually slowed down here. I would call that a deceleration. We saw that a lot in a lot of reports in 2023, I believe it was. It was probably my least favorite word regarding the housing market trends we saw. Anyways, to briefly explain here, we saw in July through December, the year-over-year increases were gaining momentum, right? We saw a gain of 0.2% in July. Then by the time we hit December last year, we were up by 6.4%. So this January, even though we're up, it's less than the gains we saw over the past several months. Additionally, the gain of 5% is actually worse than the historical average going back to 2010, because based on my nerdy Excel formula right here, the average gain from January through January each and every year through 2010 is an increase of 8.5%, quite a bit higher compared to what happened this January. Let's also look at the month-over-month changes though, because a decrease of 3.8%, some people may see that and go, oh my gosh, home prices are tanking big time in California. If you were to extrapolate this and make this an annualized number here, I'm just kind of going off on my hip here, that'd be a decrease of 45%. Now, obviously, that is not the right way to approach what's happening right now in the housing market because, again, these numbers are not seasonally adjusted. It's normal to see prices decrease in January compared to December. And do not take my word for it. Look at this. This is the average January month-to-month change, the average December through January change through 2010 is a decrease of 5.1%. So the decline of 3.8% is not as bad as historical averages. Something else to be aware of as well is that what happened in January 2023, 1 year ago, at this time, prices decreased 2.4%, whereas this year it fell by nearly 4%. So the market, or I should say home price gains or home price decreases, were decreasing more this January compared to January of 2023. But wait, there's more, because I also want to share with you guys how the year-over-year changes this year compared to pre-pandemic levels. So the change in home prices, and when I'm saying home prices, I mean the median sold price, closed escrows, houses actually were sold. So the change in prices from January 19 through January of 2020, pre-COVID, increased by 7.1%, whereas this January, it only increased by 5%. In January 2018 through January 2019, prices only increased by 1.7%. That was a year in which rates increased from about 4% in January 2018, and the end of the year in December 2018 at around 4.5%. So in other words, rates were increasing modestly in 2018, one of the reasons why prices only increased by about 2%. Also in 2017 through 2018, a big increase of 7.3%, much higher compared to what happened this January, a gain of 5%. But just for fun here, the decrease in prices during the Great Recession, a giant decrease of 41.5%. How insane is that? I mean, much different compared to what's happening right now. to say the least. One thing I also want to mention as well is that when we saw the correction that happened last year, this was May 2022 through February of 2023. That was a trough. We saw a decrease in prices down 18%. However, though, the gain in prices ever since February of 2023 rose by 7%. So because prices have increased by 7% ever since February's trough, this is why we're only off by 12% from the all-time record high that was set back in May 2022. And also back then, we were at 893,000. Now we're at 788,000, down by about 12% from May's highs. And also, just for fun here, the gain in prices over the past 4 years. I don't know if I should say it's fun, but pretty remarkable to see that prices have increased by 37% over the past 4 years here in California. Okay, let's get back to the California Association of Realtors slideshow here. And by the way, I cut this down into half. This presentation here is like 60 pages long, but I only want to share the in my opinion, the more pertinent trends that you guys should be aware of if you guys are looking to buy a house or sell a house here in California. And of course, if you're looking to buy a house in the greater Sacramento area, feel free to reach out to me at jason@meetjasonwalter.com. Here's a look at the average sale price to final list price ratio. This January, it was at 98.9%. This means on average, for the houses that sold this January, they sold for about 1% below the seller's asking price. In regards to the share of houses that were selling over the seller's asking price, that trend has been going downward here. So the share right now is at 33.3%. So approximately 33% of all houses that sold this January sold over the seller's asking price, which is much different compared to 12 months ago at 20.5%. So higher compared to a year ago. But as you can see here, ever since really the summer months last year, this percent here has been decreasing. And also it's well below the craziness we had back in April 2022 at 73% selling over the seller's asking price. Now it's about half that right now. All right, let's change gears slightly here and talk about inventory levels or the amount of houses for sale. And also we'll talk about new listings as well. Some really big trends or new trends we're seeing right now in California. So like I said at the very beginning of this video here, the month supply is at 3.2 months, relatively low levels. It's more normal to have a month supply in the range of 4 to 5 months and not 3.2 months. This is also way below the Great Recession in 07 and 08 when the month supply was about 16 months. Absolutely insane. A glut of inventory obviously back then, whereas right now we still have a historically low inventory levels. Regarding active listings decreased 8% year over year. Much different compared to the big increases we saw in 2022. If you guys recall, inventory on a national level, also in California, surged in the spring and summer months of 2022. That's one of the reasons why, or one of the main reasons why prices decreased 18% here in California during that time frame, or I should say through February of 2023. In any case, so the decrease of active listings, in other words, housing inventory or the amount of houses for sale in California decreased by 8%, but that was the smallest drop in the last 10 months. Now, part of the reason why this is the smallest decrease in the past 10 months is because inventory surged during this time last year, but also because of this right here. This actually is the first increase of new listings. This is the amount of people who are deciding to list their house for sale. This is the first increase in about 19 months. Let me just look at my note here. Yeah, 19 months. The first year-over-year gain in the number of new listings in the past 19 months. However, again, we're still down overall by 8% in the amount of houses for sale compared to 12 months ago. So overall, new listings surged this January, but we're still at low levels for inventory levels, right? Also, as I note right there, with mortgage rates increasing this year, this could limit the number of new listings because, of course, many sellers are buyers too. And on top of that, the pool of people who are interested in selling their houses and getting rid of their 3% rate and taking on a 7% rate is, of course, very much limited. One thing to watch closely this year, in my opinion, is unemployment. Because if people start losing their jobs, and people might be forced to sell their houses, and of course, that could increase inventory levels this year. Something to keep in mind here as well is that even though new listings increased by 14.2% compared to 12 months ago here, when looking at the number of new listings this January, we're still down by 36% from January of 2019. We're also down compared to January of 2020 as well. One thing to also keep in mind here is that it is normal to see new listings increase in January. We saw that especially in 2019 and 2020 compared to December. And also looking ahead, we should expect to see new listings increase through the spring home buying season as well. That'd be normal to see that. And lastly, let's have a look at the share of reduced price listings. These are price reductions. The share of listings with a price reduction this January was at 30.4%. To me, this chart is really hard to read to see how this compares to previous Januaries. So instead, go to altosresearch.com, a really good website if you guys want to see trends on a national level, statewide level, or for each of the major cities in the US as well here. So in California, the share of price drops, this is actually more recent data here, for the 7 days ended February 23rd, was at 23%, has been decreasing ever since really December last year. Also at 23%, this is below levels in 2023 this time, when at that time it was at 27%, but at 23% right now, much higher compared to 2022, 2021, and also a little bit higher compared to 2020 as well. When looking at the very beginning of March of 2019, the share of price drops was at 27%, which is above the share we have right now. Now, obviously, today's video was focused on what happened this January. In my personal opinion, what will happen in the next several months is going to depend on the direction of mortgage rates. Mortgage rates have been at very high levels at 7.15% right now. This is very close to the highest levels in about 3+ months. If we have this environment in which rates are not decreasing, this of course is going to hamper housing affordability, which of course will decrease pending home sales and also closed home sales, which will in turn increase housing inventory. With that said, I'll make sure to keep you posted with the latest developments. If you guys haven't subscribed just yet, I invite you to do so. If you guys got any value out of this video, then please hit the like button. I appreciate you. Hope you have an awesome day and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.